American Hildebrand Beckenshusen begins his journey, trading goods and sailing through the Baltic Sea. 4 days later, he reaches Aalborg, now devastated by the plague. The city rots. Streets are crammed with decaying bodies. The only human on site are people transporting dead bodies on the carts. A black doctor appears. He wears black gloves and boots, a white brimmed hat, a linen hood, and outer overclothing garment. He holds a wooden cane in one hand, one flower in the other, and an iconic bird mask. While he walks smelling a lavender flower, the empty street fills with terror at the presence of the archetype of a horror figure. As a plague doctor, your responsibility was to try to save the people infected by the plague and to keep track of the people infected. But why would you need the scary mask? The flesh blackens, fever burns, and blood fills each cough. Swollen lymph nodes, known as buboes, bulge beneath the skin. The frightening image of coughing blood and the fear of becoming infected by it is part of your daily life. You wear gloves, boots, and linen clothes to protect yourself from the bloody cough caused by the plague's pneumonia. When the plague bacteria grows under the skin, blood circulation is interrupted, causing the skin to become gangrenous, turning black or a greenish color. Imagine having the duty to check the gangrenous body of an infected patient you don't want to touch. The wooden cane becomes your best friend, used to inspect the swollen lymph nodes and other decaying body parts. This justifies the use of the clothes and the cane. But what about the bird mask and the flower? Would you really need this to scare away people from you? The plague has a mortality rate of 50% or more, and medicine can do very little to save patients, except for quarantine and containment measures. Your role as a plague doctor is mainly to keep track of infected people. The miasma theory is the foundation of medicine in this period. It's believed that the virus spreads through bad smells, and only good smells can restore balance. This theory is later proven wrong, and as we know now, viruses are transmitted by bacteria, not by the scent or miasma, but it remains accepted until the 1800s. So, how do you protect yourself? The clothes prevent contact with body fluids, but the smell of the death, the miasma of the plague, is fatally inhaled. You need a mask to minimize the miasma, and also you need to balance the bad smell of the death with something pleasant. Flowers become your simplest option, but you need space inside the mask to store them. And here you are, a mask filled with fragrant flower to shield the plague doctor from the miasma. This is the reason behind the big mask. The creepy horror figure of the plague doctor comes from the need to keep lavender flowers or mint inside the mask to prevent the bad smells from killing the doctors. With a mortality rate of 50%, half of the population is gone. If you manage to survive, half of the people you know are dead. If you think that cannot go worse than this, well, you're wrong. You should see the rest of this video. This was one of the worst centuries for human history. You know Hildebrand Beckenshusen, the merchant I mentioned at the beginning of the video? Well, he existed for real, and he left us a set of precious letters. This journey is based on his letters, on his life, and will bring us to discover more about our relationship as human with the death. Hildebrand Beckenshusen, whose family is known to be in high rise in the society, has lost half of the crew due to the plague. But a good merchant finds opportunities in the moments of despair. He goes back to Lübeck to find a new crew and buy more goods to sell. Life is unpredictable, and in Lübeck he finds the love, Margaret Witte. He sails to Riga to buy the goods and organize his wedding, but another surprise is waiting for him. The Baltic Sea freezes every year, but in this period, the 1300s, it freezes for longer durations and with greater intensity. Because of the harsh winter temperatures, ice first forms in the Gulf of Finland and the inner bay of Bothnia, gradually extending southward. In severe winters, it reaches all the way to the Danish Sound. In this historical period, the sea is entirely frozen, with people crossing on foot, by cart or on horseback. This means the European mainland and the Scandinavian countries are connected by a land of ice. Imagine Denmark and Sweden linked, not by a bridge or a boat, but by a frozen sea you can walk across. The reason lies behind what is called the Little Ice Age. Temperatures dropped significantly in some regions of the globe during a period that began around the 1300s and lasted until the 1850s, when humans started producing CO2 in the atmosphere and began to screw up the global ecosystem. There are many debates about what triggered it. Orbital cycle, decreased solar activity, increased volcanic activity, altered ocean current flows, fluctuations in human population causing reforestation or deforestation, and the inherent variability of the global climate. The important thing to remember here is that the Little Ice Age started in the 1300s and ended in 1850, when the Industrial Revolution started to produce CO2 and started to mess up with the ecosystem. Imagine the Thames, the river crossing London, totally frozen. Kids and adults are having fun skating on the ice. The frost fairs were serious events, organized in London whenever the river freezes. People dance, skate, and even play football on the ice, while market stalls sell foods and drinks. During the Little Age, the society adapted to colder climates. Winter sports became more popular, with ice skating, curling, and golf, an early form of golf played on the ice. Even ice sailing became important as a necessity, but we'll see more of this later in the video. One of the consequences of the colder temperature was the impact on the harvests. In fact, at the beginning of the century, in the 1350, Europe faced the Great Famine, a devastating event that affected Northern Europe for nearly a decade. Heavy and persistent rainfall, combined with cold weather, reduced crop yields, leading to widespread famine. This crisis was worsened by a recent surge in the global population, which had pushed farmlands to its limits. Peasants were forced to consume their seed grain, sacrificing future harvests. The price of food soared, making it unaffordable for many. There is evidence of people eating cats, dogs, and rats, with extreme cases of infanticide, cannibalism, and the elderly sacrificing themselves for the younger generations. Between 10% and 15% of the population died during this period. The Little Ice Age, unfortunately, wasn't only winter sport and frost fairs. People had seen many people died around them, with the Great Famine or the Black Death. And in this situation, we need someone to blame. And someone to blame usually is the weakest element of society. This is the period where the witch hunt started and the anti-Semitism started. Like nowadays, we blame the immigrants for the economic struggle of our society. In that time, the women and the Jews were considered the cause of the death and the plague and the famine. Like nowadays, we build walls and we emit laws to limit the life of the immigrants. In that period, they were burning alive witches and they were kicking away Jews from the cities. Unfortunately, we need serious struggle to make society improve through adaptation. It's a very unfortunate way to society grows. But where did we leave our magnet? How Hildebrand chose to adapt to this situation? What did he do? Let's figure it out. Hildebrand Beckinghusen, like many Americans of his time, begins to use ice boats, small sailing craft mounted on metal runners. Thanks to the low friction on ice, these boats can reach remarkable speeds, like 100 km per hour. In Hildebrand's area, they are made from boat-style boats, adapted with wooden planks and skates. We left him in Riga, the capital of Latvia, where the Gulf of Riga is frozen solid. From there, he travels to Visby, a UNESCO World Heritage Site on the island of Gotland, where he finally secures the goods he needs for his wedding to Margaret Whittem. Margaret, just 15, is described by her brother Caesar in a letter to Hildebrand as a handsome young maiden. Though their marriage is arranged for convenience, she ends up loving him for the rest of her life. She stays in Lübeck with their children, while Hildebrand conducts most of his business from Bruges. Hildebrand rises through the ranks of commerce, trading with Venice and cities across the Hanseatic League. He becomes one of the most respected Hanseatic merchants of his time and an alderman in Bruges. However, he later faces financial decline due to risky adventures and piracy. By 1422, he is imprisoned for debt in Bruges. Hildebrand dies in 1426, during his journey back home to his wife after being released. The historical record preserved mainly through their correspondence ends with his death. What became of Margaret afterward remains unknown. The story of Hildebrand Beckinghusen, preserved through his letter and trade books, offers a unique insight into the business practices and daily life of a 15th century Hanseatic merchant operating from Bruges and Lübeck. His life serves an example of a merchant striving despite the difficulties and adapting to the circumstances that happen in his life. Hildebrand lived in the 14th century in the Hanseatic League. which can be considered the precursor of the European Union. We saw his life through the game Patrician 4, a game that is able to show us the trading, the economic, the politic and the piracy of the Hanseatic League. And we saw that during this period there was the plague, the famine, and there was a strong presence of the death in the life of people. But this death was the fuel for the creativity of that moment, because life needs to be changed. And from this period we have my favorite classic song of all the times, and one that I will really talk to you about in the next part of this video. The journey of Hildebrand comes to an end, but there are a few lessons I think we can take from this journey. Can we consider that the European Union was born with the Hanseatic League? Is Patrician 4 a game that is able to teach us while having fun? And did we lose our relationship with the death, a close relationship with the death? Let's see more down into detail. Hildebrand lived in the Hanseatic League. The Hanseatic League was a league of merchants, started as a commercial agreement where basically all the merchants were able to trade within the cities, in the cities within the league, using the trade agreements that facilitates the commerce. With the time, it provided protection and help to the merchants, protection against piracy and against external powers. With the time became so strong and powerful that was able to even defend itself against a kingdom, because there was a war with the kingdom of Denmark that was able to win. We can see a lot of similarities between the Hanseatic League and the European Union. The European Union started in the same way, started as a commercial alliance and became gradually a confederation of states with common rules and a facilitate system that helps all the units to be together. And it comes to me very interesting to know how the Hanseatic League failed, and since the European Union is similar, if we could get some lessons for the European Union. The Hanseatic League started to fail because at some point there was the discovery of the America, and there was a shift in the global power where the power moved from the Baltic Sea to the ocean to the America. So the Hanseatic League was not able to adapt to this system and started to fail. And I think the European Union is actually facing the same situation right now. There is a shift in power. And the European Union should learn the lesson and should adapt to this shift. What's happening right now is that the United States are leaving the global power, the control, are leaving the Europe. And the Europe needs to adapt to this situation and needs to understand that the new order is a global order where there is the presence of all the states, all the countries of the world, South America, Africa, Asia, Oceania. All the countries of the world should be part of a global order where that Europe should be part of. So I think this is the first lesson. The first lesson is the European Union was very similar to the Hanseatic League. From the Hanseatic League should learn to adapt to a new movement, a new change in the global power. Then we saw Hildebrand's life through a game Patrician 4. Patrician 4 is a game that I loved. I played when I was very young. I played Patrician 3, which was very similar, and was a game that basically gives you the possibility to create an economical empire as a merchant. You start with a boat, you can simply buy and sell goods. You typically buy the goods where the city produces them, so the demand is low and the production is high, and you go sell them where the demand is really high because the items are not produced. With the time you start to become wealthier and wealthier, to have more ships, to build automatic convoys, to build real naval armies, to build to have your own production, and you start to make expedition in everywhere in the world and to become politicians, giving you political power. This game was really powerful because at the age of 12 taught me basically the concept of supply and demand without knowing economic, but not only this, it even taught me how to grow, to scale up a business, how to make an automatic system, not only at the age of 12. For this reason, I recommend this game to everybody, to the kids that can learn a lot, but also to the adults, because there is a real fun. I still find fun today to tweak an automatic system to try to automatize the production and the distribution of goods in the Hanseatic League. Like, my personal challenge and my challenge that I propose to everybody that wants to play this game is trying to find a way to have an automatic system able to cover with all the goods, all the city in the Hanseatic Leagues automatically. It's a very rewarding experience to see this happening. I strongly recommend to everybody to play this game. The third lesson is the death. Now imagine to be born in that period. You have seen the Black Death and the Great Famine. Half of the population and 15% of the population died in this period. You have seen so many people died and be affected by this. There are three options in front of you. Like, you might think that society is going to face always death. It is pure desperation. So the first option is exclude yourself from society. Don't be part of it, because it's only death what you can find in the life. That's an option. Second option is to find someone to blame. You can find a leader that will promise you that you are the first to come, so everybody else is the person to blame, and then you can have a life blaming someone, hating someone. So in the first option, you have a life of no emotion, excluding yourself from everybody. The second option is have a life of hate, where the fault is given to other people. Well, the third option is to dance. From this period, we have the Danse macabre. The Danse macabre was a song made by Camille Saint-Saëns, and sorry, I might say this wrong, but it's a French name. He made the song in the 1874. It's a symphonic poem, and I know 1874 is further late, but the theme of these songs comes from the Hilderwandstein. I personally love this song. I think it gives you the feeling of the death dancing, and I love it. There was, I can't propose this on the video unfortunately, but there was a version made only by piano by Liszt that I love it. It's very good. I hope you enjoy as well this song. But the theme of the Danse macabre is a very interesting theme. What happened was that the presence of the death challenged the creativity of the people of the time. And the death became to be personalized. The death became a skeleton dancing with everybody. And there is a lot to learn from this, because the death was dancing with all the type of people. We're dancing with the popes, emperors, kings, and peasants. And I think this is very powerful, because what we get from this is that the death is the fairest element in our life. Death dances with everybody. Death is something that everybody will face. The richest person in the world to the poorest person in the world. The most criminal, the most evil, the most beautiful person, everybody will face death. Which is something very strong that we tend to forget. The second element is that you have to dance with the death. You don't have to wait in fear your entire life. You can embrace and enjoy death for your life. And honestly, I think that nowadays we have lost these two aspects. One is to consider too much the difference between each other and forget that at the end everybody's gonna die, and this puts everybody at the same level. And we struggle to put everybody at the same level. The second element is the taboo. Death is a taboo. I struggle to remember the last time I could talk about death freely, either in a positive way or negative way, in a moment of grief or in a moment of reflection. It's a taboo, it's a topic that we don't talk about anymore. And we should talk about it anymore, because it makes us live in a life more fulfilling, a life where we could dance with the death, rather than considering the side of our life and as an element present but we don't know how to deal with. And at this point that you have arrived here, I want to ask you, what is your relationship with death? Do you see it positively? Do you see it negatively? Or maybe you never thought about it? Is it something that you talk about with other people? I want to know your opinion. I want to hear from you what you think about death. If you really like this video, please think about leaving a like and subscribe, because that's gonna give me a big help to consider continuing this project, and please let me know what you think about that. Thank you everybody.